Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today I want to talk about Dungeons and Dragons, and I want to talk about a beautiful interview between David Letterman and Chris Farley, and what we can learn as dungeon masters and dungeon performers from this, and how it points to a really beautiful future for Dungeons and Dragons. So, I have a really unique channel. My channel is dedicated to the concept to trying to get people to see that Dungeons and Dragons was never a game, is not a game today, and will never be a game, and is far more. It's extremely important to us as human beings, and that what Gary Gygax accomplished in 1974 is broader than most people understand. So let's take a journey. I kind of want to explain something to you. So basically, the book was incredibly important. It's been important, since the Gutenberg press, right? It's really important. It was powerful, but I believe it's dying. I believe that we live in a world with very dramatic dynamic change, and I think we as humans need to acknowledge that and respond to that, right? And I really think the book is dying today, and authors are dying, like as a relevant truth speaker in the world, right? Like I think the reason why is you pen out a novel or a book for 3 or 4 years, and often, and this is very much the case, often by the time you get done with that, the book isn't relevant. A perfect example of this, one of my favorites. I love Slate. They had a woman who wrote a book called Spinster, and she was like kind of championing being alone as a woman. And during the writing of the book, she fell in love and delivered this thing literally while she was in love with a new boyfriend, and was probably on her way to was literally on her way. I think she might even been engaged, right? And so she was, she was a woman who had a boyfriend she loved and was, engaged, and was delivering a book called Spinster for people, for women to read. It was just completely irrelevant, right? So, and I think, and I'm incredibly blessed. This is 2024. I want to say thank you to YouTube, and I want to say thank you to you. And I think the ability to communicate on a daily basis is really a big deal, right? So, you had theater for a long time, and then the big screen came, and then the small screen came, and there is a hierarchy. There is a hierarchy for those stories that are told on those mediums, right? And so basically, Robert Downey Jr. Let's take. I'm trying to think of. Let's take Patrick Stewart. Patrick Stewart. Here we go. Okay. So he has a movie called Green Room, right? And then he has Star Trek, which is Star Trek Next Generation. But he's also been in Hamlet, right? On the finest, a real Shakespearean play on the finest, at the finest theaters, in London and in New York, right? And in Soho and in Tokyo, right? And so which one of those stories is the most valuable? Well, if you ask Patrick Stewart, I think he would tell you theater is the most valuable. It's very personal. You're reaching people directly. They pay more for those. And what do they pay for the tickets, right? You can go see Green Room. You could go see Green Room for $15, right? But you'll pay $150 to see it play, right? And if you want to see Star Trek, you could see any episode you want for nothing, right? And here's what I'm saying, right? The reason, and my belief that Dungeons and Dragons is not a game, but is instead an identity engine that Gary Gygax delivered to the world in 1974, and a human accomplishment engine in 1974, means that I have these other beliefs, right? I don't believe that the purpose of Dungeons and Dragons is fun. Right? I want people to sit at the Dungeons and Dragons table, play Dungeons and Dragons, and walk away with wisdom, with answers, with a deeper understanding of themselves, and a deeper understanding of others around them, and humans as a culture, right? And as a society, and as a species, right? And I believe you could play D&D very seriously and have no intention, have fun. And what's really wild is, I think if you play Dungeons and Dragons and have zero intention to have fun, you're probably gonna have fun. Like, but there's gonna be a lot more. Whereas I think if you try to have fun with Dungeons and Dragons, you very much box out all these bigger things that it can do. And frankly, I doubt you're even gonna have fun. Really, like, fun is a spark that should erupt when you're striking 2 achievement stones, in my opinion. The people who seek it get the least fun, in my opinion. All right, so now we know. We look at Patrick Stewart, right, and Next Generation, green light, and Next Generation is the least valuable of his work. Green light is the next valuable of his work. And Hamlet is the most valuable of his work, and what people literally paid the most to see, right? And literally, the monetary values line up with what I'm saying. Like, you can watch Star Trek for nothing. It streams 24 hours a day on more than one channel, right? And green light, you have to get a streamer, right? And that experience of seeing Patrick Stewart in Hamlet, it's gone. Like, you can't buy it for any price. And the people who, have a signed playbill, like, that's super special to them, right? And here's what I'm saying. Dungeons and Dragons is even more special than that. This is a new form of human narrative that is hyper personal, right? Everybody at the table knows you, right? And and then I was going to say, they're your friend. No, this is another thing. I want to press down on Dungeons and Dragons, right? I know this sounds really, and I understand how dramatically different what I'm saying sounds than than Dungeon Dudes or any other commentator online, right? About Dungeons and Dragons. I get it, right? And I appreciate your patience, because I truly believe this, and I know I'm a guy shouting in the field. I know it, right? Like, nobody else is saying this, right? But it's so personal and so valuable, and I really believe that there is this opportunity to do something that humans have never seen before, right? To tell these stories with Dungeons and Dragons, not with friends, but with human explorers, people who are sitting at Dungeons and Dragons and are saying, this table is a rocket ship, and we're going to delve deep, deep, deep into ourselves, each other, and humanity as a whole, right? And okay, all right, so the Dungeons and Dragons table, the stories you are telling at the Dungeons and Dragons table are more valuable than Patrick Stewart's Hamlet, right? That's what I'm telling you, because it's even more personal, and you could do more with it. You could do more than Patrick Stewart ever did with Shakespeare's work, right? And he's made people cry, and he's inspired people, and he's, made people commit to dreams that they had, like, he's done a lot. And what I'm saying is, that's nothing compared to what you can accomplish at a Dungeons and Dragons table. All right, thank you. That's a lot of build-up. Let's get to the Chris Farley, David Letterman part, okay? So I have watched 100 hours of David Letterman, if I've watched an hour, right? I've seen literally hundreds of his interviews and watched his show for many years, right? And then Chris Farley, I've probably seen easily 50 hours of his content, right? And he is much beloved to me. I'm a big guy. I used to be a lot bigger than I am now. I literally am 120 pounds less than I used to weigh, right? So, and when I was a big guy, right, Chris Farley was really important to me because he was a person who could charm people. He was a person who could move. He was a person who never stepped away from adventure, even though he was big. And so he was a huge inspiration to me, right? So in the link below, you're going to find this interview for David Letterman and Chris Farley. I highly recommend you watch it. You don't have to, because I'm going to tell you what the point is here. But I highly recommend you watch it. It's beautiful. It is absolutely beautiful. So Chris Farley comes out for his interview with David Letterman, and he does 2 somersaults in a row. Now, this guy, he's got to be 300 pounds if he's a pound, right? And starts the interview with 2 somersaults, right? And then and he's doing press tour for Tommy Boy that he did with David Spade, which is an American classic. But he didn't know it was going to be a huge hit, right? Like, I think he might have known. I think everybody knew that Chris Farley was on point. Like, he was on his grind and he was delivering, right? So it was pretty incredible, right? So he comes out and then he just goes into his interview. It's a 10-minute long interview with David Letterman. And you could tell that Chris Farley is delighted to be there, but he is being funny. Like, he is tearing it up. And just like, I'm here, I'm a comedian, you have an audience, they're going to laugh. They are going to laugh. And boy, do they laugh. And he's so charming and so funny and so just, peak comedian. But what is really beautiful is David Letterman. At many points in the interview, David just laughs out loud. He lolls. Before lol existed, he laughs out loud. Just this uproarious laughter. Just like really, really laughs, belly laughs, out of control, right? Now he's a professional, right? This is David Letterman. David Letterman's a professional, right? But he cannot control laughing at David Farley, at Chris Farley, right? And he is genuinely delighted to see Chris Farley just crush doing what he's doing. And Chris Farley is storytelling, and he's entertaining, and he is charming, right? And he's doing his thing. He is locked in on a narrative that is powerful. And David Letterman is absolutely delighted to see it. And at many points in the interview, we'll see David Letterman just uproariously laughing, out of control, not laughing like, oh, titter, 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 what a funny bon mot you did. Just like laughing because he cannot stop himself from laughing, right? And it's so beautiful and so special. And this is what I'm saying. We're not there yet with Dungeons & Dragons. Like, so far, Gary's mask that he put on Dungeons & Dragons has fooled a lot of people, right? And he wanted that. He needed to disguise this self-help book, right? Dungeons & Dragons is the greatest self-help book that was ever written. Greatest secular self-help book that was ever written, right? Because it's not a self-help book and it doesn't suck, right? But it does what every self-help book wants to do. It makes us better, right? And so what I'm saying is that we haven't gotten here yet. There's never been a Dungeons & Dragons table where someone who has been doing dungeon mastering and has dungeon mastered 1,000 games, like Dave, was the lead on 1,000 interviews, right? We haven't gotten there yet, right? And we haven't seen the best player who was ever born, right? Who is playing Dungeons & Dragons so well, so perfectly, and is on that grind and just hitting every note so well that the dungeon master is awed by their performance, right? And that the players at that table are like, oh my gosh, right? Like, we are doing something special. We are telling a story that is helping Sally get past this deficiency we're telling a story that is better than Richard has ever read, and he's read 400 books. And we're telling a story that has a lesson that one person at this table will only understand 3 years from now, right? And just something beautiful and a narrative that is powerful and valuable, right? And we haven't gotten there yet, but we're heading there. And if you abandon fun for Dungeons & Dragons and you embrace Dungeons & Dragons as what it, in my opinion, truly is, in my humble opinion, what it truly is, the greatest self-help book that was ever written, because it was disguised correctly, right? But now it's 50 years later, and we can look at it and we can see what Gary actually accomplished, and we can run this thing till the wheels fall off, right? And really take it someplace special. And that's part of it too. And you got to watch this interview. And then I want you to think about the future and think about us reaching a point where our narratives can be as locked in as what Dave and Chris accomplished. Every single word you just heard is my humble opinion, not a thing more and not a thing less. What's important is when I hear your humble opinion. When you get in the comments and send your traffic, please consider subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.